All right. The last part of 2.6 is dealing with percents and their equivalent forms. So let's just start off with an example and we'll talk about it as we go about how to convert it to each part. So we'll do 3/4. Oops, if my pen works. 3/4 is a fraction, right? So if you want to convert a fraction into a decimal, you just do the division. So we can do 3 divided by 4. And if we carry that out, it's going to be 0.75. Okay, so we can get a fraction into a decimal by doing the division that's implied in the fraction. To get from a decimal to a percent, all you do is you multiply by 100 and you add the percent sign. So in other words, multiplying by multiples of 10 is simpler than other multiplication only because you can think of it as instead of multiplying by or by 100, you can move the decimal places 2 places over to the right. Okay, so if you move the decimal twice over, then it's after this 5 and then the percent sign. If that confuses you, just do 0.75 times 100. You're going to get the exact same thing. So on the other hand, if we were to start off with 75%, percent just means per 100. So if we were converting that into a fraction that may not be simplified, you just do the percentage and then per 100. And there you have a fraction. And if you were to turn the percentage into a decimal, so remember when we turn a decimal into a percent, we move it to the right 2 spaces. You do the opposite, right? And you take away the percent sign. Since it's here, you move it to the left 2 places. So it's 0.75. Another way to think about it would be actually doing this division. So if you do 75 divided by 100, you're gonna get 0.75. So whichever way you think about it will carry out to the same thing. Just don't get the percents confused with the decimals. So let's look at when is this information ever useful, right? So what is 15% of 600? When you see of, for the most part, you can associate it with multiplication. So what we're saying here is 15% times 600 equals what number? And we have to convert this percent to decimals. So either you think of it as a fraction, so 15 over 100 times 600, or you can think of it as 0.15, which is a decimal form of 15% times 600. And if we carry that out, that is 90. So in other words, 90 is 15% of 600. And that's the end of that one. So that leads us into the next one. 32% of what number equals is 64. So kind of the same setup, but different things are missing now. So 32% of what number, so let's just say n, equals 64. And we have to solve for n. So let's first convert the 32% into decimals. So 0.32 times n equals 64. And then to solve for n, we divide by 0.32 like we've been doing so far. Okay, once you do that, we get n is equal to, and that's twice that amount, so 200. And you could actually punch this in a calculator, do it out longhand, and you'll get 200. So 32% of 200 is 64, is our conclusion. And the next one is 90 is what percent of 360? So 90 is what percent of 360? right? So the whole is 360, and of that, we're trying to find how much 90 contributes. So we can do 90 divided by 360, and then, so since right now it's a fraction, so we have to put it into a percentage, right? So let's see, 90 goes into 360 4 times, so we have 1/4. And if we do the division, so if we actually do 1 divided by 4, we get 0.25, right? And if we do get 0.25, converting that into a percentage, we move the decimal 2 places over, so it's 25%. So in other words, pictorially, if the entire circle is 360 degrees, 90 degrees, there's 4 of them, right? So if we would just want one of them, it's 1/4 or 25% of the whole. Last example for this section. Mark scored 34 points on the test, which was 85% of the possible points. How many points were possible on the test? So he got 34 points of, and we don't know how many points were possible, so we'll just say P is equal to 85%. So you could write 85%, or I could do 34 over P and then convert the 85% in terms of a decimal or a fraction, right? So I'm going to do 85 over 100, and then you cross multiply. So you get 3,400 equals 85P. And finally you divide. So 3,400 divided by 85 is equal to the points that were possible on the test. So let me do that by hand. So 3,400 divided by 85, let's see, 4, maybe. So 4, 5 is 20, 32, 34. Okay, so 40. So P is 40 points. In other words, Mark got 34 points out of 40, and if you do that division out, you'll get 0.85, which means he got an 85%. And you could do these with your test results as well. Ours is out of 20.